tape rolling, Donna? Okay. Good evening. I would like to call to order the Nisswa Council meeting. It is Wednesday, March 20th, 2019. It's 7 p.m. Would you all join me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight. It's always nice to have people who are interested in what's going on in the community, so thank you. First on the agenda this evening is the consent calendar. Are there any questions on that? If not, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second? Second by Hoff. Motion by Jacobson, second by Hoff. Any questions about the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item C, open forum. Public comment. This is a time for those in the community to ask any questions, give any information that they have regarding something that is not on the agenda tonight. There will be time allowed at each point along the way through the meeting if there's for public input. So, is there anyone here this evening? Commissioner Brecken, welcome. Is the mic on?
Mayor, member of the council, my name is Bill Brecken. I'm County Commissioner for District 2. I would first like to thank Nisswa for the support that I received in a campaign because you put me over the top. So thank you very much for that. But I was just here, I want to just introduce myself to the council and that I'm here to help you in any way that I can to serve the city of Nisswa, and would like to extend that invitation to you. I will definitely leave some business cards here at the office so that you can have access to communicate with me, and let me know whatever I can do for you. And with that, is there any questions that you would have of me at this time?
I guess one thing I would say is, I appreciate the quick response that I've gotten from you on, a couple little different things that I've contacted you about, Bill. Saw you at the highway 5-year plan meeting here a week or so ago, and thrilled to have you as our district rep, so thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here? Good evening. Could you please state your name?
Sure. My name is Holly Holm, and I just am here, much like Bill's representation, I'm here to just introduce myself as the new Nisswa Chamber Director. So, again, my name is Holly Holm. Today was my 3rd day of my 3rd week. So I'm still very green, and I'm learning tons, and this community is amazing, and I'm really excited to be here. So, hello.
Welcome. Wonderful. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, you've got, there's a lot that goes on with the chamber and the community, and I'm sure there's a lot to get up to speed on.
There is. Sean, I've been lucky enough that Sean's been sticking around up until the end of the month here. So, and actually I'm leaving tomorrow for the sports show. We're heading down to Minneapolis to represent Nisswa, and so I'm just diving right in. It's been pretty cool.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period. Item C2 is public hearing.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we open the public hearing.
Thank you very much. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
That motion carries. Do we have somebody, how do we want to start this out? Do we have somebody here from TDS this evening would like to make a presentation.
Yes, Mayor, members of the council. For the record, my name is Brian Grogan. I'm an attorney with the Minneapolis law firm of Moss & Barnett here tonight representing TDS. I guess I might start by asking questions that you might have for us so I don't waste your time this evening. Anything in particular we can help answer out of our application?
Well, I would just comment, Brian, that at this point in time, I think most of the information that's been received has been, and really studied, has been with our city administrator and our councilman, Mr. Don Jacobson here. So if there's, I would kind of open it up to the two of you if you have some questions or comments.
I have about 24 questions, and I've gone over the laws. I was last involved in this about 20 years ago when Comcast came into the northern city suburbs.
Sure.
I was working down there doing that. And I don't think I want to take up a lot of the time here because a lot of the questions I have are more on the technical side about liabilities. You have not furnished any information about customer service, facilities mapping. There's no franchise document. There's a lot of other things that we could go through here, but I don't want to take the stage here when the public should be telling us what they think of it. And my suggestion to the mayor was that we have the public hearing, and then we do have a cable commission here. We shovel it off to the cable commission, let them meet with you or your representatives, hash out all the technical stuff, see what you're going to bring to the table, and then report back to the council when we're done. So that's my recommendation, but I think we should listen if there's any comments from the public.
Anything
Mr.
you'd
Mayor,
like to say?
if I might respond, it's our understanding under the state statute that the purpose of tonight's public hearing is to assess our qualifications, whether we possess the requisite legal, technical, financial qualifications to own and operate a cable system, provide service in Nisswa. So you have two existing franchise cable operators. You have Charter, goes by the name Spectrum, I think, as their doing business label. You have CTC, Consolidated Telephone Company. We're talking about seeking an IPTV franchise, same thing as a cable franchise under Chapter 238. And I know you're familiar, so I'm going to use language that you're familiar with having done this. What we're seeking is a franchise just for the small sliver that Arvig Telephone Company, or TDS, provides, really in the northwestern corner of the city. So we're not seeking authority to provide service throughout the city, just in the area that we have our telephone service area. And that's an area that's prescribed by the Public Utilities Commission. So the state statute allows us to seek authorization from the city where we have our telephone service. And the way the statute works, I mean, I've been representing cities. I actually am sitting across from Comcast right now in negotiations on behalf of several cable commissions in the Twin Cities area. I've been doing this for about 30 years here in Minnesota, and the statute lays out that we're supposed to submit an application, and the first thing we have to pass is your decision about whether we have the necessary qualifications. If you don't think we're qualified, then we don't bother and waste your time trying to draft a franchise because you don't think we have the necessary qualifications. We believe our application is pretty strong in the area. We're a fairly sophisticated telephone company. We've been doing business as Arvig for a long time in the community. We absolutely love doing business in this community. And all we're asking is the ability to provide another service over the exact same wires that we already have in the streets. So just to be clear, it's the exact same black copper wire that you've had in the streets for a long time. All we're doing is doing some electronics on the end of it. And what we're going to do is improve our broadband speed, which then will allow us to do an internet protocol delivery of cable. That's going to happen whether or not you grant the franchise. We're going to improve broadband in that sector of your city no matter what. So that's the good news. That's going to happen, and that's funded through some FCC dollars and some state grant funding. And that's actually already happened. The broadband improvement is already there. But if you're going to have this shiny new vehicle, you might as well use it for what it's worth, and we'd like to provide customers the chance to buy cable TV from us in addition to telephone, in addition to broadband. So to the council member's point, he's absolutely correct, obviously has done this before. We were here tonight to try to answer questions about our qualifications. One question we have back for the city is, you have two different franchises. They're similar but not the same. I've read them both, the charter franchise and the CTC franchise. We're happy to provide a markup of that document and get it back to you. Our proposal is to meet all the customer service standards. Everything that those companies meet, we'll meet them identically. We're not looking for any special deal here. We will meet every single obligation that you put on all those companies. Level playing field, that's our motto. We don't know which franchise to work off of to give you a response, though, to. So we don't have to answer that tonight, but that's one thing we'll look for clarification on. And we'd like to get this going soon. I mean, we're ready to provide service as soon as summer starts here. So to the extent you're interested in that, and we hope you are, we'd be happy to work with you as quick as we can to do it. If that's of any help. I know there's a cable commission. I believe that's a joint commission, right?
No.
Is it not? Okay. Well, we're happy to work with anybody that's interested in that. We can mark up a franchise and get it to whoever you'd like as soon as you'd like. So, but on behalf of TDS, we're very excited at the opportunity to provide a new product to your residents, and certainly answer any questions the public may have as well.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone here this evening who has questions about TDS's desire to provide additional services in the area that they have already provide phone service? Okay. Very good. Don, anything more?
The franchise that you went through with Monticello is probably a good one, or the Spectrum one. If you want to print both of those out and bring to the cable meeting, we can probably get through and read through an hour and a half maybe, because there will be some changes from what Spectrum is offering, what you want to do, especially with PEG channels and stuff like that. So my suggestion, we'll let the city administrator get a hold of the committee members, set up a date sometime in the next couple of weeks at the most. And in the meantime, you come up with your franchise that you think is a good one. We'll sit down with you at that time.
Okay. One question, Mayor. So I noticed you mentioned Monticello. It's my understanding that state law basically requires that if I'm in your shoes as a city, you can't really grant a completely different franchise. You could, but the law basically says your goal is to treat all the competitors the same, so that Charter doesn't have a worse deal than CTC, than TDS. Usually, and this doesn't have to be the way it is, but usually what you would say to us would be, hey, we have a franchise, let's say it's the CTC franchise, let's say you're happy with that. That's about 3 years old, 4 years old maybe. Usually you might say, TDS, why don't you take the CTC franchise, propose any changes that you'd like to that, and then we, the city, will look at that and tell you whether we agree or disagree, and then we'll talk about any disagreements we have. It can be done, but to introduce an entirely third model strikes me as a challenge, but we're happy to do that if that's what the city would like. I want to work with the way you guys want to do it, but ideally, it would be easier to mark up one of the ones that you already have, so that then when those companies come in and they say, geez, council, how come you have a different deal altogether with this company? Usually we could then point back and say, well, no, it's no different than what you're already doing. They're meeting every single obligation.
Well, if you want to pick one, I would pick the one from Spectrum.
From Spectrum, okay, that's fine.
It's close.
That's fine. That's fine. It was, I think Charter was 1 year, was like 2013, CTC was 2014, and then, so that's fine.
CTC is up next year.
Oh, is it just a 5-year deal? Okay, very good. Does that make sense? To use the Charter document? Okay, very good.
Okay. Well, very good. Jenny will, the city administrator will get in touch with you then, and
yeah, that's wonderful.
look to get something on the docket for meeting, and we will proceed with that.
Lovely.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you.
Here's my big file.
So do we have to close this public hearing and then move into the next one? Okay, is there a motion? Any questions or anything before or else I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing?
I'd move to close this public hearing.
Second.
Second, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Then a motion to open a public hearing regarding the wastewater treatment facilities plan.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Mark, you gonna make a presentation for us?
Yeah, well, Justin and I will be
Okay.
tag teaming this as we go along this evening. So, good evening, everyone.
Mark, if I could, just before you get into
Yep.
it. So, let's, this is for the people in the audience, let's have Mark and WSN make their presentation, and then we'll get through that, and then if there's questions from residents, we will get into that, okay?
Thank you, Mayor, absolutely, I apologize, yeah, and we want questions, please, so that's what we're here for tonight, to have questions, because, as I say, right now, the city, and this, like I say, tonight, we're going to be going through the facility plan that they've elected to prepare, getting input both from the council and the public. Then with that input, if the city looks to go forward, we would be updating the facilities plan and then submitting to the MPCA next week based on the comments and input we get from this evening's meeting, and just, in that direction. So, all right. So
I'm sorry, what's the overall, just to help the audience a little bit, what's the overall time frame for this process? I mean, next week, there would be a application sent off to the state. Time frame wise for citizens, what's it going to look like?
Yep, that process it'll be about a 2-month process. In other words, right now, if the city elects to utilize the Public Finance Authority here in Minnesota for funding assistance with this project, their application date is June 3rd. So that would be, like I say, right now the city would be submitting this to the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, the MPCA. They will essentially be taking the months of April and May to review the plan, ask questions, concur with it, and if, then they would give their approval to the city of that facilities plan, and that would allow you as a city then to progress with possible funding through the Public Finance Authority, go on to their intended use plan in June, meet their June 3rd deadline. And with that, you would still be working through the summer, and sometime in September of 2019 is when the city would know if the PFA has funding available for you and you are in a fundable range to proceed with your project. And then, then as the council, you'll still have to make the decision: are we going, proceed or not? And that would be this fall, and then you would proceed with, design over the winter with the idea of being into construction, during the 2020 construction season.
Okay.
So that's a quick schedule, like I say, based on tonight. Primarily, city staff has scheduled this tonight because we need to get it in, because you need to meet that June 3rd deadline for their funding year, which actually runs August 1st to July 31st. So you're actually looking to go on there, August 1st, 2019 to July 31st, 2020 funding year. You have to start your project within that time frame. So.
Thank you. Yep, go ahead.
Yep, so thank you. So, we have a few slides up on the screen here. From that standpoint, attempt not to skip ahead to the summary. I'll be reviewing if they ask, but a short introduction here in history. The city of Nisswa, your original plant was built in the late 80s, came online 1991, and in the history, in 2005, the City Planning Commission was presented with a lot of potential growth on the 371 corridor, and the city looked at doing a facilities plan back in 2006, expanding the plant to almost 250,000 gallons per day, average day flows, and do that. But then I'll say I won't call it the great, just our recession hit, things changed, kind of went away, and then essentially in 2012, the city made the decision to you did expand your irrigation system. There was, to the 47 acres. You did some minor improvements to the plant, and that's, you made that decision not to do a major expansion for all this growth. But that has taken place, and then the history here now, in 2017, we had Grandview Lodge, make some major, development decisions here within the city that they, the city worked with them on, and they are now proceeding with. So,
As we're looking at that, we've been reviewing, the city council has been reviewing the flows here the last few years, looking at the ERC counts and everything, and, so right now, based on what we've seen through 2018, we're expecting, as a lot of these new facilities that have been in the process of being constructed and finished here in 2019, coming online, and your flows will continue, will continue to increase. So, that's what Justin and I will get into a little bit more detail here on your existing conditions. So, Justin, you want to talk a little bit about the treatment plant and, the existing irrigation?
All right.
And if I could, Justin, before you get started, one thing, I've been getting some feedback from the community, and I think all the council has. One thing that I would just like to point out is, in 2018, we experienced, about a 10% growth in flow. And, I've heard some people say, well, the resort's doing that, causing that. And I just want to say that's not all true, because the vast majority of the projects at the resort are not online yet. So a lot of that growth that happened in 2018 is from additional usages throughout the district and maybe some individual things as well. So I would just like to get that out there because it's important. But now this year, a lot of the resort new facilities will be coming online, and we'll be starting to use the system. And that last 10% of capacity that we have is likely going to be used up, or a good portion of it. So, Justin, go ahead.
Right, that's a very good point. Right now, I'm going to talk about the existing conditions of the Nisswa wastewater treatment plant and the collection system. Mark talked about the history a little bit. Built in 1990, brought online. The initial permit was for 38.8 million gallons per year. In 2012, there were some renovations, improvements made to the plant, the aeration system, and also the spray irrigation area that allows the effluent to be disposed of. That was expanded. So that increased. With that, the city's MPCA permit was updated with an increase in allowable annual flow, an increase of about 7 million gallons per year. So we went from 38.8 million gallons per year with the initial permit to 45.7 million gallons per year as of 2012. So the image up on the screen here is the same that you have in your report, page 4. It's a schematic of the existing wastewater treatment facility. Just real quickly, I guess it's hard to see the colors on that one up there, but our force main is coming into the plant, enters primary cell 1 over to 2 into 3, and then after it's treated to the proper contaminant level, then it's discharged over the spray irrigation field. These ponds have an operating range, and the primary cells are lowered to 6.5 feet at the lowest, secondary cell 2 feet. All 3 ponds can be as deep as 13 feet. What that operating range does is, come fall, the ponds are lowered to allow for the winter storage to be accommodated. There's not going to be any more disposal allowed over the frozen ground, so there's space allowed in the ponds to store the wastewater that comes in over the winter time. And currently, 2 primary cells and 1 secondary cell, there's enough winter storage available, enough volume in those ponds to allow for the permitted 111,000 gallons per day for 195 days, which is considered the winter storage period, which equals 21.6 million gallons. So the existing plant can accommodate the permitted amount with the available storage in the ponds. So that's the existing wastewater treatment facility schematic. Let's see. I'll go to the next slide. The sewer collection, sanitary sewer collection system across the city of Nisswa is shown up there. On the left, there's the north portion of it. On the right, there's the south portion. Earlier planning for the sewer system had the sewer service area being expanded down to the south along Trunk Highway 371, south of Highway 77 and Highway 13, or extending to pick up some along Nisswa Lake, Roy Lake, Lower Cullen Lake, pick up some lakeshore residents. The plan here, as part of this facility plan, and reflecting conversations with the city, are that the sewer service area is not planned to be expanded with this plan. It will just basically increase in density. The perimeter or the limits of the collection system won't be expanded. We'll just infill with what's already available. Services will be connected to available sewer mains and stuff like that. Now, if a development is proposed that wants to expand the system, then city council and committees would need to just review those applications on a case-by-case basis to see if it makes sense to expand, to accommodate that development, or if that development should consider on-site treatment. And with that, any potential expansions to the system, the city will need to keep an eye on available land for a further plant expansion. What we're proposing here will accommodate infilling the existing sewer service area using the land that the city already owns on, contiguous to the wastewater treatment facility. Keeping an eye on available land and purchasing it in advance of future needed expansions will be important to potentially expand the sewer service area in the future. So the collection system has been covered, and the existing sanitary or wastewater treatment facility, after it's treated, it's disposed of through spray irrigation. And the image up here north is to your left on that image, and that's of the wastewater treatment facility just south of Lower Roy Lake Road. The bold dashed line is the outer perimeter of all the contiguous property that the city currently owns, and the shaded area is the 47-acre spray irrigation area that's being used right now to dispose of the permitted volume of wastewater being treated. Let's see if that 47 acres includes the 2012 expansion of 12.3 acres, which is on the north part of the irrigation area, or the left on that image. Part of the facility plan is to look at projected flows for the design period, the 20-year design period. And what we did here was city staff had identified a possible 250 to 270 connections that are likely to be made, or could it be anticipated to be made over the next 20 years. That includes an average of 7 residential connections per year, as well as a large development that you may be familiar with over on east of town on CASA 18. It's a 45-lot development that has gravity sanitary sewer in it, in the ground, ready to hook up houses. It's got a lift station without pumps installed, but someday that may come online in the next 20 years, and that will be a lot of connections that will, need wastewater treatment capacity. So with those 250 to 270 anticipated connections already anticipated, then we also looked at population growth and infilling in the service area due to population growth, and looking at numbers by the State Demographic Center and such, basically they've been anticipating a 0.6% growth. City of Nisswa didn't quite see that from 2000 to 2010. It was more like 0.1%, but to be conservative, we did look at a 0.6% increase in population and the reflected increase in flows there. So all of that said, an increase in population and all of those connections that the staff identified, we're looking at an estimated increase of 19.8 million gallons per year, which brings the current total is 45.7 million gallons that the city's permitted for. Add on the 19.8, and we've got 65.5 million gallons per year. And you can see on that chart the design year, 20 years for this wastewater treatment facility expansion to accommodate a 20-year period. Then we look at 2040, and 65.5 falls between an annual average increase in flows of between 2 and 2.5%. So that's a pretty healthy increase in flows. It will accommodate 2 to 2.5% growth in flows every year for the next 20 years. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Mark.
All right, thank you, Justin. Just wanted to take a minute, just equivalent residential connections. That's the city bills by those, but there's a long history to that. And just in the report on page 12, that you'll look at, I just went over the history. When Bill Meyer from Landeck originally designed it back in the late 80s, they used a number of 125 gallons per day per ERC. The city staff has tracked that over the years, and as you're just developing, it was around 100, 102 gallons per day. But over the last decade, it's usually been somewhere between 150 and 125. And Maggie gave me the billings you did for 2018, and in 2018 the city billed an average of 800. You did bill an average of 894.3 ERCs. So if you take the number of the staff recorded, that 41,200,000, it works out to 126 gallons per ERC, which is you've been very steady. History for that. But as Justin noted, we used what was used back in 2006 and has been used in the past. I'll say a little conservative, looking at the 150 gallons per day per ERC. But I just want to stress, that information is there because that number or that term is used a lot. But more important, we're looking at the expansion of the plant is 100 or 54,000 gallons per day, or to the 165,000 gallons annual average daily flow. So you can divide by 150 or divide by 125, however you want. But as an engineers, we look at the flows with respect to that. So then, also now talking about wastewater treatment options. As I noted, I think to you a couple weeks ago, in a facilities plan, you have to talk about doing nothing. All right. And as a city, if you would elect you have a new your SDS permit that you operate your plant with, you can continue to operate that plant. Staff will be able to handle the flows that you get. They'll treat them. They will spray irrigate them within accordance with your permit to do that. But thank you, Mary, as you pointed out, we do anticipate, though, that the flows here in 19 and 20, you grew about 2.1 million between 16 and 17. 17 to 18, you grew about 2.7 million. And that, an example, you brought on a new cafe in town, a new restaurant. They're one of the things that bring the picture. The Holiday gas station tied in. Those are the things that came online in 17 and 18, along with many others that are part of that. So, as a city, you could continue to just operate your plant as it is. Staff reports monthly the DMRs to the state. They'll monitor that. But eventually what will happen is the state will say, okay, Nisswa, do you have plans to do something? Or if not, then you are really going to be, there will be no more sanitary sewer extensions or connections. They will essentially put you on a moratorium. That's fine. You as a city have chosen to, operate with your existing system, and that's a choice. So I just outlined in on page 12 and top of page 13, that is something you can do. But I would expect, based on the history and the flows, you likely will be getting the question, letter from the state saying, well, what are your plans here at the end of this 5-year cycle? Because we see it that you're probably going to have to do something because you're not going to be able to just stop. So with that, we're then looking at, I guess, Justin, if we have.
If I could, Mark, I have a question for you. If by some chance the city decided not to do any expansion, and in the state's eyes, would they allow the city to operate at 100% capacity, or do they have a margin or of say 95%? How would they try? I mean, how would they look at that?
Right. So
let's just say by the end of this year, we're at 100%. We can't add anything more. Our flows are maxed out. What does is the state okay with that 100%, or do they say, you're at 100%? There's a bit of an issue here. I mean,
right, because I mean, I'll just say, I don't want to pick on any towns in Minnesota, but you haven't had a declining population in the last 30 years. So, right, I mean, the state looks at every community different, but the answer, Mayor, is that once you get to like that 95%, if you have someone that's going to do a development, then they're going to send in that sewer extension permit. That goes down to St. Paul. You report your past 12 years, 12 months of flows, BODs. They're going to look at that, and I would offer right now any extension permit that this city submits or developer submits on behalf of the city is probably going to be fairly well scrutinized by the MPCA, because your 2018 flows were at about 98.2% of your permitted capacity.
so you're thinking from this point on, anything new will be
questioned.
Okay,
Yep.
that answers my
Yep.
question.
And then where the state has their leverage is when they go to renew your permit the next 5-year period. They may come with some stipulations on that part of that permit renewal. City, you will develop a facilities plan. You will tell us how you're going to handle now flows in your next 5-year permit period. So that's what the city is looking at now. One option that we have talked about briefly, but is that the city can construct a new. The city was progressive back in 2008, actually 12 years ago. The city spent a lot of money, bought additional property. You own, as we say, 30 to 35 acres of property east of Sherman Road that is not currently utilized. So then, looking at that, what we looked at is for that growth, you would have to add a fourth cell or a secondary cell to operate with your current 3 cells. Your primary ponds, I'll get Mr. Meyer credit back, and he did it. You have a lot of capacity in your primary cells. So as I spoke, even expanding to this 165,000 gallon per day figure, your primary cell number 1 will be able to handle that in series. We would make some small improvements, but essentially it's adding a secondary cell of about 15,600,000 gallons of capacity now to store that additional flow over that 195-day winter period to expand up, then to spray out in your spray irrigation field. So in the facilities plan, we outlined met with staff about changing some of the operating levels in the primary pond as you look in the future, but it just outlines the ability to expand your existing wastewater treatment facility, because you have a lot of capital dollars invested in that, with adding the new cell, blower buildings, and the other ancillary that would go with that expansion. Also, the state, they ask you to look at what are your other options. They said one option is to do nothing. You have an option of expanding with your existing stabilization ponds. The other would to build a mechanical facility. They just want, as you look in the future, what you might have to look at. So, I'm not going to get into slides on that, but we did look in the facilities plan for the MPCA's benefit. What it would cost the city to build a mechanical plant, put in screening. You don't have a discharge pipe to the Mississippi River, okay? So you use land irrigation. So even if you would build a mechanical plant, you are going to probably continue to use your investment in your surface irrigation system. So that's what it outlines, is just what that cost would be to build that type of plant and then go, and operate that type of facility as a mechanical facility. So just in the report on there's quite a bit on page 15 and 16, just discussing what type of plant you would be looking at and then the related costs. I do just have a short section in there on the bottom of page 16 on sodium chloride. City of Nisswa is a little bit unique. Your chloride levels coming into your plant are typically in the 300 milligram per liter range. So that's, Brainerd, Baxter, cities with large water distribution systems, that's maybe soften their water, typically more in the 60 to 80 range, but those cities would be. So just, I've just pointed out to the city that as you continue on this path of providing municipal, sewer service, you are going to have to maybe look at some ordinances on backwashing of softeners and stuff into your collection system, because ultimately as the EPA and the MPCA, right now you're monitored with nitrogen. You have a nitrogen limit. You monitor chlorides only. Down the road there could be a chloride limit, and then, so I'm just we pointed out in the facilities plan, just bringing it back to your attention that that's something you'll have to look at down the road as a city. Because it's just as if you take a glass of water and dissolve salt in it, there's no magical way to get that salt back out. Just try to prevent the salt from getting into that water in the first place. So, with that. So I said, essentially expanding, the facility with respect to treatment capacities. We could do it with stabilization cells or mechanical. So with that, I'm just going to have Justin just outline, like I say, if you expand to the 165,000 gallon per day average daily flow, how would we get rid of that wastewater?
Justin?
Thanks, Mark. So, yes, with an increase in average daily flow or annual gallons per year, there's going to be more wastewater, treated wastewater to dispose of. And the 47 acres that the city uses right now for their spray irrigation field, it is able to accommodate the permitted amount because the permit allows for 36 inches of depth, like 36 inches of water to be applied over that area. That number is not going to change with this permit, and so we need to have more area to spray 36 inches over. And again, that dashed line is it surrounds all the land owned by the city of Nisswa. We looked at what was available, what made sense, how to expand the existing irrigation system, and the shaded area on that image up there is what's being proposed. It's 20.4 acres of additional spray irrigation area, and it is enough to apply to the land surface the treated increase in wastewater after it's treated. So, we're looking at the 54,000 gallons per day increase over this 20-year period. It equates to an increase of just shy of 20 million gallons per year. Then 20.4 acres of additional spray irrigation area will accommodate that. And it fits inside of the land already owned by the city. And we would be able to do that just by modifying the existing underground piping system, extend the laterals to the east or up on the screen, and then also when we used up that available space, then there's an area to the upper left or what would be the northeast that we could extend the 8-inch main line and put in another network of laterals in that upper left corner. So, with that, the economic review or cost estimates can be given. What we have on the screen is the estimated cost to construct our recommended option for expansion, which is the additional secondary treatment cell as well as an expanded effluent irrigation area. The top part is the kind of a breakdown of the components of that expansion. The new secondary cell, including the pipes and blower system, the expansion of the effluent spray irrigation area, a building to store the system components for the secondary cell, improvements to or modifications of the existing secondary cells to increase the kind of the aeration capacity of that cell, and required upgrades to the existing plant site. So the estimated total construction cost is $2.973 million, With that, there will be, we'd like to add a contingency for unknowns. We do our best to estimate conservatively, but they're, at this study stage, not having done a design, we add a 10% contingency to hopefully cover unforeseen increases. So we add $298,000 as a contingency. There'll be permitting requirements, engineering during design and construction, and then your administrative, legal, and interest costs for the Public Financing Authority loan comes to a total estimated project cost of $3,927,500. And we also looked at the estimated increase in operations and maintenance costs because of an increase in the plant size and capacity, more electricity being run, more grass to mow, maybe another part-time employee, down the road. But in year 20, we estimate the increase in operations and maintenance costs would be $20,000, and that would be, as I said, in year 20. So it would take a while to get up to that point where, the first year that this expanded plant is in operation, it's not going to be running at max capacity. It's not going to need all the operations and maintenance costs. So you're probably looking at half of that $20,000. We also looked at the estimated cost for the mechanical plant that Mark talked about. That is, I guess not recommended for a number of reasons, but estimated cost for that plant was $6.92 million. So, another $4 million on top of the option of expanding the existing plant and continuing to operate the way that it has. And also the annual operations and maintenance costs for running a mechanical plant were estimated at $112,000 compared to $20,000. And I think.
All right, thanks, Justin. And like the state actually requires you to look at maintenance costs because they don't want a community building something they essentially can't afford to maintain and run within their permit. So they say we didn't take up screen time, but in the appendix they say we also had to look at a mechanical plant just state and just for the city in the future what this is going to look like. So then I'll say to conclude here, we'll just back up to actually page 1 of the which is the summary. And essentially, like you say, the wastewater flows in 18 were just over 41 million gallons, or about 90%, over 90% of your permitted capacity. Flows are expected to probably increase by 3 to 4 million gallons over the next 2 years. As we talked about, there are a lot of facilities that will be coming online that have been put in place here in 2018 and will be completed in 19. So, like I say, with that and the information that we reviewed with staff and the population, the projected increase in flows for your 20-year planning period, and I want to make sure everybody's aware of that, is 2020 to 2040, because you're really not going to have anything online until 2020. But as I say, we're looking at that increase of 54,000 gallons per day to be able to handle that anticipated growth over your next 20-year planning period with your wastewater collection system and facilities. So with that, we are recommending the expansion with a secondary cell and more spray irrigation area, to handle that versus a mechanical or the do-nothing option, because ultimately you'll probably be looking at some type of direction from the MPCA to do something as your flows do continue to grow in the future. We looked at that too, that that 165, you also have your peak summer 2-month flows in your permit. That figure would go to 250,000 gallons per day. As Justin noted, adding the 20.4 acres of irrigation area to raise your total to about 67 acres and increasing the total volume to be handled by your plant in the future up to that just over 65 million gallon per year number. We also pointed out, like I say, we have the collection system in there. Right now, part of the facilities plan is not to do several $1 million worth of extensions to your sanitary sewer collection system. We're looking at, we understand there's going to be fill-ins, within the existing service area, and that's what we're planning for. As Justin noted, if there are future extensions considered, the city will have to, those will be on a case-by-case basis, how they would be impacting your future plant operations versus looking at, on-site systems, within those areas. The existing land you have, as we pointed out, properties on the west side have been purchased. You're becoming more landlocked. It will become more difficult to expand your plant in the future. So you'll be, that's just something as a city, you'll be looking at that. As I pointed out, just item E is just quick. 2, keeping on the radar is your softener backwash. As you go in, as you work down the road, the EPA, the MPCA are going to be changing that, how they may look at from monitoring to some type of limits. And, that's just something the city will need to, work with as you, as you have your residents, and their water softening systems with their private wells. And then last, 2, as I just noted, land use and zoning are all, should remain, on the city's radar going forward. As I say, since we, you last looked at this in 2006, that actually had some ponds going out west. Well, those properties now have very nice homes built on them and everything else. So just, development is too coming on your existing facility. So just as you look at, as I say, your city was very progressive back in 2008 with the properties you did purchase. Now 12 years later, you are looking to use those properties that you purchased. I'll just, for round numbers, with all the people that got worked with, it was, $450,000 spent back then. If you had to try to buy that 40 acres here in 2019, that estimate would be closer to $5 million instead of $4 million, because you'd have a lot of property purchases. So, the city has made some investment, in what, in your future that you're looking at. So with that, I'd like to open it up first, for questions from the council on any specifics you have, and then the general public. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Council members, questions?
I know one of the things that I've heard is that people are wondering, if we go ahead and do this, what is it going to mean to my quarterly bill? You have an estimate on billing after this project is through? Are we talking of 5%, 6%, 7% increase, or what? What are we talking about?
Yeah, that was actually at the information at the Public Works meeting, wasn't it?
Mostly at the workshop
Or at the
that the council had at the end of February. We talked about some very preliminary estimate. We need to start somewhere with the conversation about what those costs would look like. There's different ways to look at the costs and factor them into the rates, whether it's a one-time rate increase or whether you spread that out over a couple of years and what that looks like. How much of the current reserve balances that the city has, the sewer fund, what do we have that we can apply towards the expansion and the remodel project, because we have 2 different pieces of this project that we're looking at. And so all of those conversations are very preliminary. We did bring just an estimate back to the council at the workshop just to start the conversation, but from a staff perspective, that was, for us, hopefully worst case scenario, and we want to see a lot of improvements made to those numbers starting, but yeah, I think that was just to get the ball rolling. We certainly don't want to have concerns from the current rate users. There are already, cost of living and adjustments built into those rates already. So when you see a number, whether it's 6, 7, 8, 9%, there's that automatic or, cost of living adjustment built into that as well. So you have to factor the 2 pieces separately. But as we can tell, it's a pretty complicated project, and I think a lot more conversations have to continue about that as we really fine-tune those numbers.
And you've reached out to, drawn a blank.
PFM?
Yes.
Yes.
That helps with the analysis of that, and they'll be working on that, correct?
Yes, they are. And after our workshop in February and the initial conversations, staff has gone back and looked at it and said, we were pretty conservative in our first go around with the cash flow model, but let's get a little more realistic about how many connections we expect, the 250 to 270. Let's build that in so we can see what those expected connection fees are going to be going forward. We didn't build as much of that into the initial round because we wanted to see what that might look like. So we're hopeful in the next week or so we'll have an update.
She did a very good job of not answering my question.
Well, you know,
I think a lot of people are concerned they're going to see 20 or 25% increase, quarterly
Sure.
increase, and they're concerned, and I can understand that. I would be too. But if we can assure them that we're not even going to be close to that, it's going to be closer to maybe between 7 to 9 or 10% someplace in there, that's what we'd be looking at.
Sure.
Well, I think that if I could kind of step in, and I'm not at all a proponent of seeing the quarterly fees going up much. I think what was kind of presented at the workshop, for some reason I was thinking
workshop.
Public Works, but the workshop, okay, was like a 9%, the first go-around was like a 9% increase for 3 or 4 years. And then it would taper off after that. Out of that, from that 9%, I believe, as it was projected, and very preliminarily, and in all honesty, there isn't going to be a good answer for a period of time yet, as Jenny just explained, because there's a lot to take into factor with how many ERCs are going to be purchased in the next 18 months or 12 months or something like that. So I think there was a number of, I think it was like over 10 years, it would be about a 50% increase, or I forget exactly how those, do you remember those numbers, or John?
The model only
Anybody
projected
remember those?
5 years out.
I'm sorry?
The model only projected 5
Projected,
years.
so it's like 40% or 50% over the next 5 years.
Right.
So, so those are the first numbers that we have. And I think the city has a lot of discussions to have on that topic yet. We really haven't gotten into it because we don't have really good numbers to work off of. I will say I've been in contact with Paul Gazelka and about some state potential for state bonding money, which would then lower that $4 million. I'm in back and forth with Josh Heinzman and Carrie Rude a little bit to see and get the three of them to see if we can look at some sort of bonding, which would be similar to grant money. So there's and other grant possibilities, although one thing I think that the city has learned is that because we are quote-unquote blessed with healthy property values and low debt, that we don't qualify very easily for grants. Communities who are struggling more than we are tend to get the grants, and much less for healthier communities. So, but the city is looking into all of those things to see what options are out there. That's going to take some months to accomplish. So just in summary, it's going to take a while to figure it out and see what monies we may be able to get.
And at this
Go ahead,
point, we are not voting tonight whether or not we're going to do a project. We
There
are
you go.
simply allowing for the application process to begin.
That is correct.
I guess I'll expand on that, Councilman. From the standpoint, Don, right now, the city, you would be submitting this facilities plan, but as I said, then you make your application by June 3rd. And once you make your application, then staff starts working with the state and finding out what they're offering, for interest rate. As the mayor said, it'll really be then through September where you're going to be, I'll say June through September is where you're going to be putting your financial package together and learning what they're willing to offer you from that standpoint. At that point, that, I'll just say, is in September then, once you get that information back from the state, that's then when, you know, the city will make the decision, can we afford this, or are we going to proceed? You know, tonight, right, you're not signing the dotted line to, just, you're not authorizing W's and start designing anything. You know, you're going through, we believe this is what we need to do as a city with the state, so you're going to submit that, get their feedback, and you're talking around a $4 million budget, is what you're talking about. As you work through it, and, through this, I'll say the next 5 months, through August, that's when you'll decide and get the information from the state, if you will proceed, in the fall of 2019, or are you going to, I'll just have for some reason, if our legislature doesn't put the bonding together and you don't fall in the fundable range, the PFA may very well tell you you are going to wait a year on their funding cycle. And that they may do that, so if that happens, I would expect the city will probably do that, and you're not just going to go out and run to the local bank and bond for it on your own. So, like you say, from the standpoint, yes, rates are going to be impacted, but you'll know that information in much more detail, as staff has pointed out, as you work through it, essentially from June through August, that 3-month period.
Thank you, Mark. So, so what I have for final comment is to stay involved, stay connected, attend the meetings, you can stay on top of what's going on, be in contact with our city administrator, and by all means, my email and phone number is out there. Feel free to contact me at any time, and know that we're working, on deciding what to do and to figure out how we can minimize the cost. And sounds like September is kind of where the window closes, where we need to make a decision to move forward with the plan, unless state bonding money doesn't come through and we get postponed a year. Is that correct, Mark? Or?
Well, correct. I mean, you make an application to go on called their IUP, intended use plan, but then, that usually right around Labor Day, usually after that is when the state notifies the applicants, are you in the fundable range, are there dollars available, and then essentially what that interest rate is that they're actually offering you for that low interest loan, or like you said, just because you're medium household income, the city should not probably plan on any grant dollars, but I've also told that to other communities. And lo and behold, the PFA, Mr. LaFontaine, they crunch the numbers and they say, no, we're not going to handle it. They may come through with $450,000 that they figure they're going to give you out of one of their programs. So, and let's say staff and the state won't know that until they work it through and look at the numbers come, sometime early September of 2019.
Okay.
Is anybody in the audience who wants to say anything?
Well, that's where I was going to go, but I wanted to see if there was any council questions or input before I did that. Okay. Is there anyone here who has questions or comment, or have we kind of covered, or at least made it sound vague enough to where it's, Ray, come on up. Please state your name and then address, probably for business or whatever in town.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Ray Rosinski, 1826 Portview Road, Lakeshore, Minnesota. And I'm here tonight just to comment on if it would be possible to put the map up showing the spray area that was proposed.
We'll get it up here in just a second.
Yep, right there.
I'm here tonight just to either clarify and or just make adjustment, make the community aware of what property was purchased back in 2008 by the city from my wife and I. I guess easy to clarify. I'll just go here to the screen. But,
Yeah, feel free.
Essentially, 2008, we own the adjoining 40 acres that is right straight east of this spray, proposed spray area right here. And also we owned a 120 by 1320 L-shaped piece that came down Sharman Avenue. In 2008, the city of Nisswa purchased from Sharman Avenue 1,200 feet up to this point right here. To this date, we still own 4.02 acres of what's proposed on the spray area there. And that's could be an oversight, whatever, but I just want to make clarification that the city does not own that property, and that's why I'm here today.
Okay. Thank you, Ray.
If I could just
If
speak to that, just real briefly.
If there's a comment somebody has for that, because I'm...
Just so the council knows that staff is working on that. I think the county records that are attached with one of the parcels and the other isn't consistent, so we're trying to get that clarified, absolutely. So this is for just a graphical representation, but yes, absolutely, we'll make sure that's all clarified.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. I'll comment. If you actually would look back at stuff we heard with a couple months ago, we did have that notched down. And, you know, this changed, like you say, when we were just here a couple of weeks ago looking on the Crow Wing County website, it was showing this property owned by the city of Nisswa. And so, you know, not that it is, because, Justin, Craig, you're the one that brought it up, but it still showed you paying taxes on it. So I agree.
Nice.
It showed it two different ways. It showed the city of Nisswa as the owner. It showed you guys paying the taxes. So, but just so you know, they pointed out what we had. You know, the maps before this actually did notch down. And they say this change was just made a couple weeks ago because it was based on what Crow Wing County website was showing us.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
So, anyone else have concerns, thoughts, praise? Okay.
Hi, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having the open meetings. My name is Tom Jensen. I have a residence at 3933 West Linden Boulevard in Nisswa. And thank you for the presentation, Mark and Justin. This does help understand what the costs are. There has been a lot of concern. I know you guys have gotten a lot of emails from our neighbors and others, because we have seen our bills go up consistently, and there's been some big jumps. And when we see the 9.25% thrown out in the dispatch, and you hear about those things, that is concerning. So this was helpful, I guess. Mayor, I heard your point that there has been increased usage even with the same number of ERCs. We've seen that over the years. It still feels like with all of the new ERCs coming on, that still seems disproportionate, the amount of increase that would be for existing homeowners. So still some concern there. I guess, again, the numbers were probably early, and there's a lot more to look at in terms of how many ERCs are truly coming online, paying hookup costs, what monies might be available. So I fully understand that, and that this has been helpful. But I do just want to voice, again, as longtime residents of the area, it's discouraging to hear about a lot of the development process. The sewer costs go up significantly. So,
Thank you very much. And as I said, stay tuned, stay involved, and, feel free to contact, city administrator, council, mayor, ask your questions. I try to answer emails the same day or the next day, so it is going to be evolving over the next months. And and in the end, there'll be a decision to be made. What do we do? We'll find out all the costs. We'll find out, what it's going to take to do the project, what the state's input is, and then we will, in that September time range, we'll be looking to make a final decision. Ray?
If I could make one additional comment too, I'm a lifelong resident of this area and seen this area a long time ago. I've watched today and I've watched it grow, and we've got a very desirable area where we live. Back in the mid-90s, I sat in the old City Hall building. We had similar meetings. I've been going to these meetings for 40 years. And someone at that point said, yep, we're maxed out. We're never going to get any bigger. It's never going to grow anything beyond this. That was 1996. And I made the comment at that time, that was just, development's just the tip of the iceberg at this point. And I think all of you, if you're honest with yourself, have watched the development grow since 1996 even. And to say that that was the end of it was very short-sighted. And to say even now that what you're proposing now is basically just taking care of now and a very short time into the future. And this is most needed by all means. And not only that, you need to look even beyond this 20 years for the next generations to plan for them and everything else. So just a quick summary, I truly, truly believe this is a very necessity for this community.
Thank you. You know, I mean, water quality, and just to kind of note from there, water quality is of the utmost importance. I mean, there is, if we lose our lakes and if we lose our pine trees, we've lost what makes our area pretty special and unique. Looking to do those things in the most cost-effective and wise manner, that needs to be the goal for sure. So, thank you. Anything else, or is there a motion?
Move to close the public meeting.
Okay, second? Second. Second by Mr. Hoff. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearing for the sewer facility expansion is closed.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, so assuming the council has no objection with the preliminary plan that was presented tonight, we'll move that forward to the MPCA for their review and comment.
Should we make a motion for that?
Probably.
Do you want to make that, Don?
I'll make the motion that the preliminary plan that was presented tonight be the one submitted to the state.
Thank you.
Second by Ryan. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And motion carries.
Thank you.
We are moving on to item D. Item D1 is the city administrator's report.
Thank you. I do not have anything outside of the new business items tonight unless there are questions for me.
Any report on your trip to Washington?
My trip to Washington, D.C. was wonderful, and went with a couple of other local city administrators and with some individuals from Sourcewell, and we had a great time getting to know other administrators and planners and clerks from around the country, and got to get a little sightseeing in, and met some of our legislators as well. We were able to meet Senator Klobuchar, Senator Smith, and Representative Pete Stauber as well. So it was a great experience.
Thank you, Jenny.
How's the webpage doing?
We're very close. I might need Tom's help with a little bit of our current hosting company getting the details, but that's where that's at. I know.
Any other questions for Jenny? Thank you, Jenny. D2, city attorney.
Mayor and council,
What do you have?
we have an issue that's kind of bounced around in a couple of different fashions in about the last year or so related to the Hills Crossing area. there was a land use application process that happened 10 or 12 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, where as part of that land use application approval process, the city was to have received a portion of that property committed to an easement for right-of-way. And it appears that it didn't happen. Previously, I think our then zoning administrator communicated with the fee owner of the property seeking to get that rectified. I don't think anything has come of that. And so this is becoming pertinent again because it's anticipated that some development activity could be occurring just north of that parcel, for which that easement will become even more important. And so even if that doesn't happen, it is apparently an untied detail here. So my proposal is that I will now go to the property owner and seek a grant of that easement. If for some reason we can't get that, there are probably a couple other ways that we can proceed in order to secure that easement, depending on the length of time. And I'll check in with Tom Blummer about this, but depending on the amount of time that we have maintained, and that's been essentially a public right-of-way, there may be an even more simple way to record our right to that easement. So if I have your approval, I'll communicate with the property owner in order to try to rectify it. If not, I'll go about it a different way, and I'll be prepared to report to you at the next council meeting about where we are with that.
Okay. Should we make a motion?
I would move to authorize the city attorney to contact the property owner about the easement at Hills Crossing.
Second.
Okay. Questions on the motion?
It's pertinent because I think we're going to have another application within the next couple of weeks.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Anything else right now?
No,
Mr.
that
Pearson?
concludes my report. I know I'm coming up later in old business, but that's all I have for now, unless anybody's got any questions.
Item D3, report, city engineer report. Mr. Hallen?
All right, good evening. Let's say, based on, the recent, the public hearing this evening, you've got your copies of preliminary. I'm looking to, get any input from the city council on just, items to that. Justin and I would then, finalize that the first part of next week, and we'll be submitting that to the MPCA here in Baxter for their, to get it on their docket for their review over the next couple of months. I'll also have to work with city staff. We'll have to put a specific resolution together for the adoption of the facilities plan that's into the MPCA, because the city will, like I say, once we produce the final one, you'll get a final copy. You will need to adopt that to allow the city staff then to proceed with the PFA. So I guess I knew tonight was going to be a solid item there. So bridge department is continuing to work on the bridge. Justin has talked with staff regarding property acquisition for the Hazelwood Bridge. Like I say, our plans are to continue with that, so that can be submitted into the state. So should bonding dollars become available on the bridge fund or the discretionary funds here this June, then the city would be eligible for those dollars here with respect to the bridge on Hazelwood. I guess been a couple other questions regarding, but I see you have a letter later here that WSB will be coming in more on County 13 and 77, 371 intersection. So, but when questions have come in, we've assisted staff in addressing those with them. So that's all I have, unless there's questions.
Thank you, Mark.
All right.
New business, item E1, recommendation from the Park and Recreation Advisory Commission to approve resolutions supporting applications for, I'll read them both and we'll do them one at a time. Regional Trail Program funding and Local Trail Connections Program funding. Does anybody have anything they want to say about that, or we just move it forward?
The second one, I have a question on.
Okay. Well, I would, if there's no questions on A, I would entertain a motion.
I move resolution number 19 is presented tonight.
Second.
Discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, Don?
The grant, the matching grant for this item, the write-up says that they want to come up with agreement to secure a long-term easement with ETOC land that will serve as the matching funds. How are we doing there? Is that a for sure thing or not a for sure thing, or what's going on there? If we don't get the land in lieu of the matching, what does that do to us?
I would say I think the process is moving forward, and we're working through a lot of the just details and the correct legal language that is necessary. So this is to hopefully as that continues, we would have this resolution to apply for that grant. And if for some reason those discussions don't move forward, then we wouldn't have that grant application likely. So, but they are working for it, and maybe Gary or Mike could speak a little bit more to the details.
Are you concerned ETOC is not going to?
I'm just wondering how the negotiations were going on.
Mark can maybe talk further to it, but as far as what we know, that they're more than on board with this.
Okay. It's only money.
Right. Correct?
Well, and
With that assurance, I'd move the resolution as presented.
Second.
very good. Seconded by Johnson. Question on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Item E2, recommendation from the Planning Commission regarding the comprehensive plan. Jen, you want to give us just a little update and where you'd like to see this go this evening?
Yes, definitely. So at the March 5th Planning Commission, the commission reviewed the updated draft that has been formatted and put together with the help from Sourcewell in a really nice looking document. There were very few questions from the Planning Commission, just a few details that some grammatical things that I'm going to work through some of that. A couple maps, we're going to work through some of the details. Some of the maps that will end up in this plan approved this year will need to be updated within the next couple of years, so we know that piece of it. But the recommendation from the Planning Commission to the Council is to release this draft for a 30-day public comment period. We'll also send it to Crow Wing County for their comment as well. And so we'll put the draft comprehensive plan on our website. We'll put an advertisement out that it's available for public review. And then we would bring it back to the Planning Commission for their approval and back to the City Council for a final approval next month.
Okay. Any comments by the council? I guess one thing I would just say is I'm glad to see the comp plan back on the agenda, and that we seem to have worked through the concerns that people, council, park board, citizens, everybody has had, and I'm sorry, planning and zoning, and that we're moving forward with this, and that planning and zoning has presented this and feels good about it. So.
A lot of hard work, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's not perfect. Everybody can find something that they disagree with and something they applaud in the plan, but that's the way it is.
Well, and it is a plan that needs to be, reviewed every so often, and it is a guideline for all of us to follow. So I would entertain a motion if there's someone would so desire.
I would make that motion. So, what are we moving? That we're putting it,
Just to release it for
making it
30
made
days.
available.
Yeah,
Yes.
Make available, publish it for 30 days for comment.
Do I have to read all that?
No, just
Everything's stapled together.
just underneath
I
the,
would move to approve the release, to release the draft comprehensive plan for 30-day public comment period from the dates March 22nd to April 22nd.
Second.
Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item E3, approval of the 2019 City of Nisswa Fire Department budget and 2019 fire contracts. Is there anybody here that doesn't look like anybody's here to offer anything? Jenny, you have something you want to?
I'll just mention that the fire chief, Sean Bailey, and I met with all of the jurisdictions and presented the information to them. There was no concern or issues on their end, and so everyone is agreeable to the contracts as presented.
Okay, very good. I would entertain a motion if someone felt so moved.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move we approve the budget from the fire department and also approve the fire contracts between the city of Nisswa and Lake Shore, Lake Edward, Pelican, and Pequot Lakes as presented.
Is there a second on that?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item E4, approval of temporary liquor license and temporary beer license agreement for the Brainerd J.C.'s, April 28th, 29th. Okay. It actually says 2018, but I presume it's 2019.
Yes.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, the dates are wrong, 26th and 27th, so Friday and Saturday of this year.
26th, 27th.
Yes, yep. So for the 12th annual Run for the Lakes.
Could you introduce yourself,
Oh,
Kara?
yeah, sorry.
That's
Hi.
okay.
I'm Kara Schaefer. I am the chair of Run for the Lakes this year with Brainerd J.C.'s. So, pretty excited. Do you guys have any
It's a big
questions
event.
about it?
It's a big event. It's a
Yes.
fun event.
Yes. Yep. Everything's same as all the other years, same route, same everything, so.
Don?
I'm not against the application, I'm for the application, but I just want to inform you that we've had other races that have gone through that have told residents along the race course that they cannot drive on the public street or park on the public street while the race is in progress, and that is not true. You can't stop people who own homes from parking on the street.
Yes, we
So
are.
you
aware.
understand that?
Yep, we know it's not a closed course.
Okay,
We
that's
will advise, there's a car going through, we want to make sure that it's safe for the runners, but we also respect the people that live along the course and allow us to use the course. So, yes, we know that it's not a closed course.
I do think, in fairness, that was another event. that
It
we
was
had
another
these
event, but I
issues
think that
with.
we've informed all the events for
Yeah.
all the runs, so you know.
Nope.
Yep.
Thank you. I'll remind everyone again, but yep.
Well, I'd make the motion to approve the temporary liquor license and temporary beer license agreements for the Brainerd J.C.'s on the dates of April 22nd through the 29th, 2019.
Do I hear a second?
Second. 26th and
This is-
27th.
Yep,
26th and
just 2 days.
27th, yeah.
Yeah, we don't need, just the 26th and
Oh.
27th.
That was actually probably last year's dates or something, or somehow.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Amend
just
those-
Friday-
amend those
Friday,
dates.
Yep. Okay.
My motion.
Okay.
Awesome.
And there was a second? Did I hear a second? Second by Ryan? Hoff? Okay, we
I'll
did
amend
have
my
a second.
second.
Jenny, you pick.
I'll amend my second to reflect the
Okay.
dates.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I email this to you?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that in the morning. Yep.
Item E5, personnel updates, March 2019.
Mr. Mayor, I'll approve the resignation of Thomas Runke, liquor store clerk, as presented.
Second.
Motion Motion by Jacobson, second by Ryan. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Item E6, recommendation from Public Works Committee regarding request of proposal for WSN Engineering Services to design infrastructure improvements regarding the city sewer facility.
What?
No.
No.
No, it's not?
Grandview.
Grandview. Sorry. What, I'm sorry, so
It's the
I'm
roads,
lost on that one.
the roads and the
Yeah.
the signs and the study.
the roads and signs study, okay. Apologize for that.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Public Work Committee's recommendation to request an engineering service design proposal for its infrastructural improvements through the GVL area. Proposal will be provided for Public Works Committee for initial review and comment.
Second.
Mr. Mayor, a comment?
Yes.
Normally, when I ask a question, I think I know the answer, but this time I don't know the answer to the question I'm going to pose. The Planning and Zoning Commission did extensive work on the roads and the placement of a lot of the stuff that's going on at Grandview, the driveways and entrances, and et cetera. And now, if I read this correctly, the Public Works Committee is getting into moving of driveways and stuff like that. And I'm just wondering, at one point, should something like this go back to the Planning Commission, or should it go back to the Planning Commission? I don't know. I don't serve on the Public Works Committee, so I don't know if it's a minor issue or a major issue. But I'm just bringing up the point that permits were granted based upon the Planning Commission recommendations and motions. So I'm just bringing the issue up to what everybody else thinks.
The reason we're asking this, Don, is recently Grandview was asked about they brought it up at the last committee meeting, and we tabled it for a lane that would go right just in front of the curve off of Forest and Woodward as a way to move traffic one way into their hotel, then they would come out a different way. The concern that was expressed by staff was that not with the project that they want to do so much as we'd like to see an overall idea of what's planned throughout the entire area by Grandview. Okay, we get, it's just the feeling staff has is we've been getting one part of a project and then another one and another one instead of the overall picture of it. So what we want to do is put together an overall review of, okay, this is what potentially, or this is what the city street area looks like. These are some of the potential things that have come up. Then we can address that with Grandview, and they can say, okay, this is what the city's thinking. Then they can look at how do what we want to do plug into that, so that we don't come along later and decide to do something with the city street and they end up having to reinvent the wheel, or we end up tearing up what they put in. So that we're just trying to get a better overall picture of, from staff would like to get a better overall picture of what everybody's going to do down there. But since we're not getting it from that, we're going to put together what we could do. Not necessarily what we're going to do, but this is what we have. This is what a street project would look like in this area if we were to go ahead and do our whole street project.
And that's fine, but we issued a conditional use permit on several streets and stuff like that at parking lots there, and if there's a change to that, if it's a minor change, I don't have a problem with that, but if it's a major change,
They have
it
to
should
come back to you.
in.
Yep.
I just wanted to make that,
Did I explain that adequately for how staff we were referring to it at the meeting?
I certainly think that captured the conversation about that, yes. We did talk about that internally as far as where these conversations should land, and when you're involving multiple committees or commissions, it gets complicated. Thinking this request specifically probably would be best vetted with the Public Works Committee, not forgetting that the Planning Commission has, granted permits and things like that based on certain set of facts. So we haven't lost sight of that as either, but thought that this should be, kind of worked through with the Public Works Committee at this point.
Okay, as long as they do it the way we want to do it on the planning commission, we're fine with it.
I'm sure that'll go smoothly.
What do we do?
So, I apologize for being so off base when I open this up. I do think, Don, and I did talk with Mr. Hallen for just briefly before the meeting tonight. What this would do tonight, obviously, is request a proposal.
That's fine.
Yep, and I think what we've heard, and I certainly am really going to encourage, is that we get a group together and have some, wherever it's through Public Works, and we have some discussion about long-term what's best for the streets in that area. Yeah. And kind of hopefully work some of that out before we ask WSN to actually start spending time and money on it. This is a very preliminary piece, and hopefully we'll work through some thoughts before we actually start spending money to...
It was just a technical question that I brought up, and just to put it on the table, that's all.
It's a good one. So, if there's any more discussion, I would like to hear it. If not, I would entertain a motion.
Did you have a
We
motion?
have one.
I think we were in discussion, didn't we? Or
Yeah.
no?
We have a motion and a second.
We had a
do?
motion and
Wow.
a second.
I'm off
You were
in...
trying to find your spot, that's okay.
Thanks for covering for me. Okay, if there's no other discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'll see if I can get back in the saddle again. Item E7, WSB memo dated March 15, 2019 regarding the intersection improvement, State Highway 371 and County Road 13. We have that in our packet. Jenny, did you have anything you want to add to that, or not?
Nothing significant. There's been a few small edits to the memo. It's basically the same from February. The approximate local cost sharing portion has been adjusted a little bit. I know they're continuing to work on that and continuing to work on the schedule to see if this is something that can be done this summer. With the amount of snow we've had and being limited and being able to look at some of the properties along this project has been a challenge for them. So they'll keep us updated as far as how it continues to move forward.
Okay. I would add that, and I know some of you have heard this, I attended the 5-year plan meeting that the county highway department had, I don't know, a couple weeks ago now. There is serious discussion within the County Road Highway Department about how to deal with cost sharing, you may say. That cost sharing there is a new, and we've heard this, there's a new plan that's being finalized right now that will be going to the county commissioners, hopefully in, 6 weeks then, so 4.5 weeks, possibly for consideration, which could change this around fairly substantially, or not at all. But there will be a new plan put together for how to deal with all these instances whenever they're dealing with a city, township, whoever. And ultimately, it's up to the county commissioners to approve that new plan. So if we can drag our feet, it may be to our advantage. So, or if they drag their feet, it could be to our advantage. So That's what I know about that. Any other questions or anything before we move on? Okay. Old business, item F1, resolution regarding the abatement of hazardous building or hazardous property at 26130 Birch Avenue in Nisswa, Minnesota. Mr. Pearson, do you have an update for us on that?
This resolution / order that's in your packet is the continuing product of this process we've talked about for statutory hazardous abatement. This resolution and order, once the council votes it, if the council votes it, I should say, would start a process where this would be served on the property owner and then eventually possibly be the foundation for a court process to enforce it. Because this process affects a pretty substantial property right on the part of the owner, I would like to have one last chance with your approval. This is the format that I would propose to use, and I would like your approval tonight to the form and maybe content of this, and then for me to go to this owner one last time and say, this form and content has been approved by the council, or at least the form has. It'll be, unless we can have some action on this, then this will come before the council for a formal process at the April meeting, and then the process will take place from there. You know that I've told you in the past, and the staff as well, we have had numerous outreaches to this property owner without any response at all. And on the one hand, you might look at that and say, well, let's proceed. On the other hand, I'd like to give this person one more chance. I have been updating him every time about what the council has decided and how I'm advising the council. Every time we have one of these meetings, I follow up with a letter to him telling him what we're doing and what we're going to do. Still have no response at all. But even having said that, I'd like to take any questions about this, and if there's any process questions or any content questions, but then ultimately what I'd like to do is have your approval coming out of tonight to take one last run at this property owner with this form, to tell him that this is the way we're headed.
If we do tonight what you're suggesting, and we wait one more month to actually implement it, a month from now, if we implement it, what would be the time frames to getting something done out there? Are we talking about this fall, or what?
Yeah, Don, it depends. This, by statute, if we get to April and this resolution order gets adopted by the council, then it'll get served on the property owner, just like a summons and complaint would in a lawsuit. And then that will trigger a time frame during which he has to answer that. And if nothing happens during that time, then I will put this in front of court. And so the question that you're asking depends on a lot of variables that we don't know the answer to, like how fast I could get in front of a judge on this, what kind of contest we might have if that happens. That could be everything from probably an optimistic timeline is what you just said. A pessimistic timeline would be that we would be still arguing this or waiting for court decisions into 2020.
So it would be advantageous to potentially, or to give the landowner one last opportunity to do this?
Yeah, you know, it's like it's akin to civil litigation, and in those instances, you want to try to exhaust every possibility to resolve before you get down that path, because if we start a court process here and then he engages there, then it becomes sort of a point of no return kind of thing. And I just want to be able to tell, ultimately, if we're going to be in front of a judge on this, I want to be able to show a judge a timeline and documents that show that we did everything we could to try to communicate with this landowner to avert this process and avoid it. So that's yeah. Yes, Don, we do lose 30 days, but in the large scheme of it, it's.
In addition to what the attorney has sent to him, the planning and zoning administrators passed past tense, have sent several letters to the property owner requesting he show up, and he never gets anything back from them, from those either. So it's been a long process.
And, you know, if this was something that could be concluded in 60 or 90 days, you know, I would maybe feel a little different about another 30 days, but the fact that it's, if it goes into litigation, it's going to be a while, you know, it's probably worth one last shot for the reasons our city attorney has given.
Well, I'd move that we authorize the city attorney to do what he had verbally told us he wanted to do tonight, and to come back and have a resolution ready for us at our April meeting of the council, one way or another.
Second.
Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, if I may? This resolution order that you're looking at here is 95, if not 100%, what you'll see ultimately if this last effort to communicate doesn't get any traction. We will put, there's a reference in here to Exhibit A, which is photographic evidence we have of the conditions there. We really don't have much other information that would be documenting the situation other than that photograph. But this is beyond just a draft. This is what I would have you consider, and I don't anticipate changing it much, if at all, when it comes back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So is that something, this question, is that something you're just going to move, you're just going to put the draft and send out, or are you going to get it back to us or to Jenny, or what? Well, I just want to be clear on the process. I don't have a feeling one way or the other.
I'm going to take what you're looking at here and I'm going to send it to him, and I'm going to say at the March 20th council meeting, the attached was considered by the council for form approval, and the council approves the process and asked me to approve me getting in touch with you one more time to say this is the document we will be advancing at the next council meeting. I ask you once again to help us avoid that, or show up at the meeting. Otherwise, we'll proceed according to what you have here.
Thank you. Appreciate the clarification. Council reports, G1, Mayor's report. I have touched on probably all of these things this evening, but I'll just go through it real quickly again. I have been in contact with Senator Gazelka. He directed me to Senator Josh Heinzman, or Representative Josh Heinzman. He is our District 2 guy. Mr. Gazelka seemed at a reasonable request, said that if something came forward, he would support it. Although I think we all probably understand that supporting looking for money and actually getting money from the whole body as a whole is probably two different things, but we'll see where that goes. I am kind of back and forth with Mr. Heinzman. I'm also have sent an email to Carrie Rudd about this, so I'll keep you posted as to what's happening, but we'll see if we can make something.
Even if we can't get anything this year, we can get it next year, it's still same thing.
Yeah, no. Yep.
I think you're referring to the whole sewer.
The sewer,
Yeah.
yes.
Just, I don't know if anybody else.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, because I didn't really state that, so I appreciate you clarifying that. Second thing is, and I did touch on this, but the county is working on their cost-sharing program. I think it would be possibly, depending on how fast that new draft comes together and gets to the county commissioners, and then how fast they move on it and their decision, it's probably to our advantage if that project moves slower than faster. So we'll kind of see. I know Tim, I want to say Bray, but is it Bray? Tim Bray, is hoping to have it to the commissioners, he said in 6 weeks. Tim Hool thought that might be a little optimistic, but they're going to see how fast they can, I shouldn't say how fast, we'll see how quickly it comes together, and then it will be in the county commissioners' hands as to what they ultimately want to do with it. There are some significant dollars involved with if they make much for changes, and then there's it was interesting. One thing I'll say is it was interesting at their meeting. You get a different perspective when you look at how big the county is and the projects and the troubled areas they have all over the county, and where their dollars are going and how they're spending them and where they're spending them and all of that. So the big question in the end will be, what do the commissioners think? So if anybody has any desire to reach out to the commissioners and give them their thoughts, give your thoughts about that they should take care of their own projects, and we won't ask them for money when we do our streets, and they don't ask us for money when they do their roads, that could be helpful.
Especially the turnaround at Grandview.
What's that?
Especially the roundabout up at Grandview.
Well, I can share with you, that is on their future dream list right now, I would call it. They have so many projects ahead that project is like in their, we'll get to it and have discussions in the future about it. I don't see that in the next, it could change, but from what I saw, I don't think we're going to see that in the next 5 years. Could change, but that's kind of what I gathered. And then finally, the east-west Linden, Forest, Woodward, Nokomis, Grandview neighborhood, I would like to see us get together, and I'm not quite sure what the right, how we'd come together. I talked with maybe Jenny a little bit more, maybe Tom, but I would like to see a group get together and kind of do have some discussion about that, about those streets and how they work and don't work, and and have Grandview at the table and look at a 50-year plan. What should really happen in that neighborhood, not just Band-Aids, and can we, not move some power poles to put a trail in, or how do we keep bandaging up everything that's happens in there. So, and I would like to, as I said, I'd like to see that happen before, we ask WSM to engage in spending time and money on cost estimates. We're not really sure what we want to do. And as I've said before, probably at Public Works, I really think the city, I believe, right or wrong, the city needs to decide what the street is going to be and where it's going to be, and then put that in a hard, make a decision on it, and say this is what it's going to be. Grandview, work with us on how to make it happen. Grandview has some plans, 5 to 10-year plans for moving a lot of the cabins that are on that west side of the resort.
Would be nice if they shared them with us.
Well, right. Yeah, and I did actually have some discussion with Mark about that. When I say they have, probably saying they have plans is probably, it's what I mean to say, but it's probably not what I mean to say. Plans, they don't have written drawings, but they have the idea to move cabins in the future, and probably even tear down old ones, build new ones. So they don't actually have documents, but they have the idea to do that. And I think the street discussion could help encourage them, and I do honestly believe that it's a great time to really get into this with them as they're looking to finish up this project before they get, before we get a year down the road. And also, this project, the overall with the streets, the Lindens and Nokomis, Woodward, Forest, all that, is not in our 5-year road plan right now. So, so it could be 5 to 8 years, something like that. That would give Grandview, if we decided what we were going to do with the street, it would give them from now until then to figure out how they want to, say, reconfigure their resort, if that's what they truly want to do. So I did get together with Mr. Ronai a week to 10 days ago, talked about some possibilities. Initially it's hard for him to react. He's not the final decision maker. I think I didn't get thrown out of the building, and it does seem like there was some possibilities there. So I think just getting together and noodling it through and coming up with a plan over the next months that we can all move forward with, the city and Grandview. So I would like to see that happen here in the next couple weeks. How it's going to come together, I don't know right now. If there's anybody who specifically would like to be involved, I'm sure Mr. Ryan will be. But anybody else, you'll be posted, and I'd love to see everybody there if you want to be in on the discussion. So that concludes my report. Any questions on it? Don, you look like...
I was wondering if you're going to have cookies.
I'll bring cookies. If it takes cookies to get you to help encourage you to be there, I certainly would bring cookies.
That would help.
I like cookies too. Council, John, we'll start with you at your end.
Nothing.
Nothing? Mr. Hoff?
I've got nothing.
Okay. Mr. Johnson?
No, nothing really. Had a Gull Lake Trail meeting yesterday. Things continue to progress there. As you saw, we had some grant funding proposals or grant requests that were up for motion tonight. So those things are still moving forward. And I guess that's it.
Okay. Mr. Jacobson?
Two things. Number one, a brief update on how we're doing for the P&Z administrator job. You mentioned before you had two possibilities, but that's where it was.
Yes, thank you for the question. So we extended the advertisement for the position an extra couple weeks. I did receive some new inquiries about the position, but I did not receive any more applications. So we are going to move forward with interviewing a couple of individuals next week and see where that goes. And if we don't feel that any of those individuals is a good fit, then we will figure out how we find some applicants for the position.
Second thing, I talked to the mayor before the meeting started. When we were doing our budgeting work for this year's budget, we talked about health care for our employees, and we froze it for this year. And we decided at last year that we were going to form a group or committee or get together again and discuss the issue and decide which way we wanted to go, what we were going to do with health care. I just wanted to bring that back to the table so we didn't forget it before we got too far into the budgeting cycle. So I guess it's up to the mayor to decide if he wants to have a special meeting or just however you want to handle it. I don't know.
Okay.
It's up to you.
What I'll do, Don, is I will talk with Jenny here in the next week, and we'll talk about it and kind of put together some sort of a game plan, and then she will look to take the lead and look to schedule something if that's what we need to do. Okay? I'm glad you brought that up because it would be very easy for that to slip and slide. Okay, anything else?
No.
Do we hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Yay.